Welcome to the Cherry Picker, the horror movie podcast where we like to kill people, but not really. I'm your host, Zach Cherry, and with me as always is...
Maybe they've always been with us, those things out there. Maybe they love it, seeing us hate each other, watching us kill each other off, feeding on our own cold fucking hearts. Eddie of Edward is Truth.
And today we're talking about They Live, released November 4th, 1988. This is the month of the 35th anniversary, and this is a John Carpenter film. And I don't think we've talked about a John Carpenter film other than The Thing. I could be wrong, but do you remember?
I think for this pod, I think that's it. I think you're right.
For the Cherry Picker, yeah, we haven't, which seems like really sacrilegious, but here we are. We're talking about John Carpenter today. Yeah, I had not seen this. I watched it 4 years ago, actually, at during the pandemic, or just right before it. No, it would have been during. So three, four. My time is, I don't know what time is anymore, but I remember distinctly my mom was visiting. This is like the last time she was visiting me, and I would just be like, "Mom, pick a movie off the shelf or whatever." And she never would, so I would just like pick a whole like block of movies and then be like, here. And They Live was one that I hadn't seen for some time, so we watched that. And every time I watch this movie, I completely forget what it's about. I know that there's the sunglasses and there's Roddy Piper and Keith David and that's it. And like the blue, pinky looking skinned aliens and the Obey, and that's like literally I forget every time. So I just watched it like not 1 hour before we started recording this, right, just to brush up, because I'm not gonna sit here and just be like do what are we talking about? I'll let you do all the work.
Right. What do you remember, Eddie? Yeah, no, my first time was anywhere within, like you said, time is an elastic band, and it just stretches. So it could be 10 years ago, it could be 20 years ago, I don't remember. I do remember that my oldest friend, John Carlos, screened it for me when he found out I hadn't seen it. And I was really into it, but it's so funny, I haven't seen it that much. I think I've only seen it maybe twice prior to this screening that I did for the pod. And I walked into it kind of wondering, like, I mean, literally, I hit play. I rented it off Redbox, and I was watching it, and I was thinking, like, this isn't one of my favorite John Carpenter films. Like, if anybody were to ask me to, like, what are your favorite John Carpenter films, the first three or so that would come to mind, this would not be among them. And I'm just like, why? Because I remember the themes feeling really, really close to it. So I was almost like on a mission to find out why isn't this higher?
It's a very it's very timeless, just with its social political commentary, and even watching it because it's so relevant. And what's interesting is that this, I mean, I could be wrong. I know that for a fact this was the number one movie when it was released, so back in November. And it might have been the only movie that was like John Carpenter's that was number one. Like, I know that Halloween had a lot of success, not immediately after it came out, but like thereafter.
Sleeper hit.
So yeah. I think this, like, John Carpenter had a string of bombs throughout the 80s. And I believe The Thing was one of them because it went up against E.T. So this was kind of like the first time like he really had like a number one movie on his hands. And it's funny how that happens with some of these directors, where some of their best work will completely bomb at the box office, and then they'll release something which, I mean, I may as well show my hand. I mean, I already kind of did, but yeah, like this one it's not my favorite either. There's definitely moments in it that I like, but I feel like it's lacking. Like, this is a 94-minute long movie, and it feels a lot longer than that. Like, the pacing of this is not good. We'll get to the 5-minute and 20-second brawl in the alleyway between the two actors, but this one really drags, and especially in the beginning. So that's it. Yeah, I just feel like it's just every time something exciting happens, I feel like it almost like it takes a step forward and then it takes two steps backwards. That's my takeaway from this movie. But it was the number one movie, and it might have something to do with the fact that there was a presidential election like that, like a week later when this came out. So they really used that in the marketing and advertised this as sort of like the whole thing about the mind control and whatnot, and linking it to politics, that I think it became everyone was just like, oh, I'm very interested in this. Like, you know, people's interest in politics was very high at that time. And originally it was supposed to come out October 21st, and they pushed it back because that's when Halloween 4 was being released. Which is hilarious because that was like the first movie of the Halloween franchise that John Carpenter was like, hey, I'm not producing these anymore, and just kind of took a step back. So they were kind of in competition with it, but like, you know, few weeks removed. So, but yeah, number one movie, and then it just dropped off the next week and disappeared. And this to me is like one of those movies that I think if it wasn't John Carpenter, this would be a forgotten movie. Like nobody would ever talk about or reference this movie.
Well, I mean, it's interesting because I feel like it straddles a lot of genres in its runtime, and I don't think that's a bug. I think that is a feature. I'm actually kind of charmed by it. I don't bump up against the same problem that you've expressed with the first act. For me, I really kind of enjoy the ride for the first and the second act. I think the third act is when it starts to kind of fall apart for me. I noticed my mind wandering because we're no longer. For me, one of the key strengths of the movie is the way John Carpenter introduces these themes and these concepts of the disenfranchised, the ironically labeled working class, and kind of like unwittingly being what's the word I'm looking for? I guess like subjugated to a slave class, you know, like, I mean, the complete, they talk about it in the news, like the dismantling of the middle class so that there is only upper class and the poor are getting poorer, and all of those kinds of themes, like those feel more relevant than ever to me right now. And I don't even want to, like, the funny thing is, I thought about it, I was like, I don't even want to bring up why in this pod, because years from now, people are going to watch this and they're going to think, yeah, it's totally relevant to today, because it will always be relevant thematically. But I think the way the concepts are introduced, it's incredibly blunt. I hesitate to even call it symbolism that's introduced, even though that's what it is. But because it is so on the nose, it almost feels like there's no guise, you know. It's just kind of like, no, this is what it is. This is, you know, like you're being conditioned, you know, the billboards are telling you what to think or not to think, and what to focus on and to sleep, basically, you know, to just kind of like be herded like sheep and just live until you die, basically.
Yeah,
do as you're told.
It's definitely very heavy-handed in that approach, and I think because of that, we don't really get a lot of, like, there's not a lot of fun stories to tell with, like, in terms of just like using this as subtext, because the subtext is just the regular text. And I mean, I think a lot of it has to, like, problems that I have with this are maybe character based too, because there aren't really a lot of characters in this movie, and I don't think that Roddy Piper as Nada, according to the credits at the end, because he doesn't actually reveal what his name is, he's not like, his presence is like, he's very dry, because he's a wrestler. I know that he did do, like, perform in a lot of movies, and John Carpenter, because John Carpenter's like a huge fan of wrestling, he's like, I want Roddy Piper, and he had to quit the WWE or whatever in order to be
the WWF, World Wrestling Federation.
Yeah, at the time, but it actually benefited his career his wrestling career, because when he went back, he was more popular, more sought after, and probably made even more money. So it worked out to his benefit. But he's not an actor, and he's just kind of like he doesn't have a lot to do here. And
Zach, all wrestlers are actors, so let's just put that out on Front Street right now. I don't. Very true, but it's a
different type of performance.
I agree, 100%.
And that's not to say that I don't enjoy what he's doing here, but it's just like for a movie, especially one that feels like it's just trudging along, and it is very ham-fisted plot-wise and not really like character-wise. Like it starts to grate on me, and I know that like you're talking about like the ending, and I think like the ending is ridiculous, or just like the last act, because it's just logic seems to get further and further away by the time we get to the end, but like there's more action, and I feel like at least like with the end I'm just like, okay, at least things are happening. There's like science fiction-y things. I can get on board with that. I'm enjoying it. Okay. So yeah, before we get more into it, I do just want to do some housekeeping stuff. So just in terms of Patreon, we actually don't have any new Patreon supporters today. Well, we can't win every week, but I will. Yes, absolutely. But I'll take that opportunity to thank all of our Patreon supporters who've come in and out, whether you're supporting the podcast, The Cherry Picker, or my main channel, Zach Cherry. And if you do support us on Patreon, which we would greatly appreciate, you will get early access to all of our episodes. If you are supporting on the Freddy Krueger tier, you will get access to the After Dark episodes, which we do every month. This month is, as I just like rip out my earphones, this month is Buffy season 7, which we are finally finishing that series. We've gone through. We started last year, didn't we?
I don't remember.
I think it was time. Yeah, it's been a year and a half of just getting through all these, because it's a big show. It's 7 seasons long, so we're excited for that, where we infamously go through every episode and then rank them separately because we can't agree on shit. So that's what's going to be happening on the After Dark this month. I do want to thank our editor, Boy Cried Wolf. So thank you very much for all the hard work that he does. But other than that, I cannot think of anything else that I need to go over. And if it comes to me, I'll mention it. But
sure.
Did you prepare a premise for They Live?
Yeah, it's not terribly complicated. It's basically the IMDb
awesome.
Top of the list, not even authored by anybody. And I thought I'd do it in our John Carpenter, somewhere in the John Carpenter films that we covered.
This is very niche. Very niche.
Yeah, inadvertently I don't know how I came up with this voice, but I just always imagined him in those discussions, I guess, as a big Hollywood man with a cigar and a big chair that would swivel around, and he'd have ideas.
Which is funny because that's like couldn't be anything further than who he was.
Absolutely,
like that is like the type that he would not want to have anything to do with. But it's just funny when Edward like gets a voice in his head of like what this person sounds like, and then it's just like, this is the John Carpenter voice, like cha-cha-cha.
Right, it made us chuckle. I just like the idea, I think, of him plucking a young Jamie Lee Curtis out of the chorus and going, I'm gonna make you a star, like one of those, a big bright twinkling light on the Broadway. But anyway,
we have fun here.
Here it is. They influence our decisions without us knowing it. They numb our senses without us feeling it. They control our lives without us realizing it. They live.
Very nice. Yeah. Very nice. What is that's more like Brooklynese than where, because they're in Los Angeles in this movie, right?
Yeah, they are,
Yeah.
and very much so. Especially as we progress through, I start to recognize certain areas that I think they may have also shot films like Night of the Comet and things like that in DTLA. Like in the beginning when they're in, or toward the beginning when they're in like that facsimile tent city. It looks actually kind of like the outskirts of downtown LA, because you've got this hub of very, very tall skyscrapers that are kind of like encircled by the freeways, the various freeways. And then you've got like East LA, you've got Compton at the south, you've got, and you've got, the other directions as well. But
Los Angeles is always a
distinct look.
it's always
Yeah.
a very interesting city to see in movies because it's so vast and there's so many different areas in it that
Yeah.
it's just like mostly if like it's just in LA, it's like it's in Hollywood, or you'll see like Melrose or like Scream 3 or Cursed or any number of Wes Craven movies where they shot there. And then sometimes like with John Carpenter, or even like Wes Craven with A Nightmare on Elm Street, like they're shooting in Pasadena and these neighborhoods that are supposed to be representative of the Midwest. And it's always so weird to see downtown LA because it's so like it's not that impressive. It's like it doesn't, like, when you think of LA, like there's not like big tall buildings like there are in like New York City. I only remember like was it Independence Day? Because that was one of the cities that the spaceship went over, and they were on the rooftop like welcome aliens, and then boom,
Right.
yeah.
That sounds very
But,
LA.
but it's like every time LA, like downtown LA is represented in a movie, I just like, is this LA? Like I have to like look into it because it doesn't have a very distinct look to it.
No, it's incredibly strange. It's a very mixed bag. I calling it eclectic makes it sound like that's the look they were going for. I think it's much more kind of thrown together. Some buildings look, I mean, it's not that large either. I mean, it's a very small collection of arteries, like that have street signs on them. But I mean, and there are tall skyscrapers there, but there's also like, just like this strange structures of the freeways that you have to drive under and weave around and everything like that give it a very distinct look. You've got a lot of chain link fences. You've got some very streamlined, modernized buildings, but you've also got buildings that haven't been renovated since the 1920s or even earlier. So,
and this is where Skid Row is, because I'm assuming like this is where they are set up in this.
I mean, there's a collection of a lot of different spots that they could be, like because also even Skid Row has looked like 100 different ways just during my lifetime. It's largely become, I guess, quote unquote habitable.
It's so different than like if we're like, because I was just watching Candyman the other day, and just like Chicago represented in that movie. It's just like there's something that's so Chicago about that. Like it's just like it's really there, and I guess with LA, it's just like it could be any city. Like that's how I see it, unless they specifically show like landmarks.
Yeah, and there's also a reason why, like, anytime downtown LA needs to look remotely futuristic, other films will tend to turn a hose onto the pavement, because one thing I always get whenever I see concrete in downtown LA is it has more brownish hues, more earth tones than gray.
Yeah.
It's just the dirt, and God knows where it comes from, but it's there.
And don't forget the smog. It's all about the
and
smog.
the smog.
The sun sets with the smog.
Yeah, right. And it always seems to rain over downtown LA more so than other places. I had so many delivery jobs. Sorry.
Does it rain a lot in Los Angeles?
When it rains, the clouds always seem to kind of like gather over downtown LA more than any other stretch of Los Angeles. Like I would like have to deliver something and drive from Hollywood or somewhere more westerly into this into the downtown area. And as soon as I cross you know, if I'm on the 10 and I cross like the 110 or whatever, now it's becoming the Californians on SNL. You get on the 405 and but anytime, you know, once
the
I
rain
cross
clouds,
like that barrier,
yeah, they're being attracted to the big satellite on top of the building that is
there you go.
brainwashing everyone to think that nothing's wrong here.
Right.
So
it's their technical problems.
Yeah.
You know, like the system is down. Please, business as usual, folks, as much as possible. That's what the rain is in downtown LA.
So this movie, I mean, it's a cult movie, obviously, as most of John Carpenter's movies are. But this one has like had a little bit of a reputation. I guess it's like neo-Nazism, kind of have appropriated it in some way to just like see this as like a like an anti-Jew thing, which is interesting. To, like that, like reading that in here, but like Carpenter was just like, that is fucking bullshit. And I guess he stated it in 2017, because it was like years and years of just like these like neo-Nazis just like kind of like coming forward and just being like, this is what this movie is about. And he's like, this is his quote, "They Live is about yuppies and unrestrained capitalism." And that's what makes the most sense to me here. But it's always funny when people like take something and read into it, because we were just talking about how on the nose everything is in this movie, that you know, some radical group will just be like, no, this is what this is about specifically. That's what John Carpenter was meaning to say.
Yeah, I'd say if people are looking for anti-Semitism in something, I'm sure they can find it wherever they would prefer to encourage them to pursue that line of thought, which is shitty and stupid. But
I would think that there would probably be more, like it would actually fully be based in Hollywood then, if there was like an anti-Semitism message to the movie.
I mean, I even noticed like when okay, well, hold on one second, because I think there are a lot of isms in this movie. Anti-Semitism wasn't the things that I felt like they were kind of like touting or anything like that. I mean, I feel like, and I didn't feel like it was kind of like endorsing any of these isms, but the ones that I recognized, I started listing them, were materialism, capitalism, classism, and even ageism, because of that one commercial with the woman talking about living forever and, you know, alluding to being eternally young and everything like that. I was just kind of like, everything is about like reaching for this particular ideal so you can just remain completely superficial and it's self-absorbed, so you don't look outside of your own experience. But I even noticed when our friend Nada is first kind of like voicing his and we can really unpack this, but like being outspoken about what he's perceiving with the sunglasses on, the first two people that he does it to are women. Just kind of like, look at this bitch, she's so ugly, and I'm like, oh my god, what am I watching? But and he's not Brooklynese either. That's just something I lean on, I guess. But but the next two people that he confronts about it are two policemen, both of whom have this fair-haired, blue-eyed, you know, arguably kind of Nordic-looking lineage. They seem Nordic presenting, at least, which I, you know, argue is making a statement. Since they're the oppressors, I felt like that was making kind of like a statement, if anything, against Nazism. That's how that was the only thing that I perceived that was relatively kind of like in alignment with anything about that particular block of world history. Did anything jump out?
I didn't even get I didn't get that from. I didn't get any like Nordic or Aryan vibes from anything, because most of the time like we didn't really see, like when he would put on the sunglasses, we would just see the aliens, and it was an interesting artistic decision, because that's when he would like kill them, and we'd sort of like see that violence, and it was all like in the black and white, and then it just kind of allows your imagination to think like, you know, the way that all of the other people in the room are perceiving that is like he's just going in there and just shooting people. which is really crazy. So I mean, I think it was probably better that's the way that John Carpenter kind of portrayed it, as just like seeing the aliens. But I mean, like that's the thing. Like he was going in there, and I was just like, how are you? Like he's got his like automatic rifle or whatever, and it's just like, how are you? Like you're just kind of shooting at everyone. Like, are you? Do you know that you're like hitting the aliens? And if not, like, are they? I guess like we do eventually see that they do bring violence, they do bring destruction,
right?
But it's just like there's always part of it that feels like you're kind of like you're just going out there and like blatantly killing these aliens, that like regardless of like of whether anyone knows it or not, and it's just like, but are they peaceful? Like they're obviously manipulating us.
Right.
His strategy is just fucking crazy. Like that's the thing. This movie is just like it's just like there's not a lot of logic to most of it. Like there's not a character that we can get behind here. Which
I can only think of two examples that I could get behind choices he was making on screen.
Yeah.
And I can share those out if you want to finish your thought, though.
No, please do. Please feel free to interrupt.
Okay.
That's
the first one was when that's what we do.
Yeah.
When the police first kind of like make their entrance into the tent city with their militaristic presence, shall we say, with the gear and the shields and the mowing down of, these already poverty-stricken people who are just doing their best to try and like get a job and feed their families and take care of each other. Like they actually seem to be kind of like-minded, and even they're falling prey to like sitting there and watching the television and just kind of like denying anybody who's speaking out against anything. You're getting in the way of my programs. Just shut up, guy who keeps getting in. But once the police come in and they start assaulting, I believe, the man who was on the television screen,
the preacher.
Well, the preacher, and also there was he was the second one we saw. The
bearded guy. Did he have a beard?
And the other guy. They were assaulting the two of them, and then there was like the young kid who was kind of like hiding and cowering and everything like that.
See, that's their problem with this movie, is that there's all these characters and I don't know who any of them are. Like there's like no one is really established beyond just kind of like weaving in and out. You know what I mean?
Right. I mean, he grabs this kid and just kind of like, come on, like he's going to keep him safe. That I could get on board with. Like that alone, I was like on board with. I was like, oh, cool. He's like, he's on the right side of things. He's trying to like make connections. He even tried, actually. Okay, here's another small example of it. The way he and Keith David's Frank kind of like caught each other's eye on the battlefield, as it were, when this pandemonium is just like surrounding them, and they just kind of look at each other, and it's like he's looking for a like-minded person who he can kind of like go into battle, or at least try to find out what's going on and everything like that. And Keith David's character Frank is still very much kind of locked in his like, I don't want to rock the boat, I don't want to make it worse, which I feel like is all kind of understandable. A standpoint for anybody to take when
his character
see police mowing people down.
His character was like very well defined for what little he actually did have to do in the movie. And as Keith David, of course, like he's going to act the shit out of anything that he's given. Love the fact that he's in this. In fact, I believe that John Carpenter specifically wrote the role of Frank for Keith David. So yay. We need more Keith David. We saw him briefly in Nope, released last year. He was the father of whatever their names were, Kiki, is it Emerald? Emerald was Kiki Palmer was Emerald, and Daniel Kaluuya was, what was his name? Fuck. Anyway, you know what I'm talking about. He was.
You already remember more about Nope than I do, so good for you.
Yeah, he was the father. He had just like one scene at the beginning there, but it's just like we need more Keith David.
In everything. I mean, I wanted more Keith David in this. I actually thought at the end of the movie, like, I think they made the movie about the wrong character. Like because I forgot Keith David. Like, jump ahead. Sorry, spoilers, folks. Hopefully everybody's already seen the movie at this point. But when he gets, shot in the head, and
Which
and he's
that was
taken out.
some weird editing too. I don't want to.
Yeah, horrible.
We
And
can-
so close to the end. Like, so close. So at least we didn't have that much movie without him, I
close.
guess, or without him as a living presence.
Well, I mean,
but I
he
just
did,
thought, like,
he did disappear for like a large chunk of the movie because
he
it was
did.
like when we were
He did.
kind of like in the middle act, but then
Right.
he's brought right back in for the scene, which is just I actually like I was making some dinner as as I got to that, so I got up and I can still like hear the TV from my kitchen, but I just knew it's just like I'm not gonna miss anything. Like it's a great scene, like it's like choreographed great, but it's like one of those things where it's just like it's funny and then it's not funny, but then it becomes funny again. And they actually, did you know that they parodied this on South Park? It was the episode Cripple Fight with.
I think I've seen it. Yeah, I've seen it on the internet. Absolutely.
Yeah, with Jimmy and Timmy, the two handicapped kids at South Park Elementary, and they. I don't think it was as long. Like I don't think it was like 5 minutes and 20 seconds that they did on the cartoon, but they got the like the choreography the same, and everyone just kind of like gathered around, and they're just like after they stopped, they like ran out of energy. They're like, all right, break it up. But I love that it's like that's like this is when I think of They Live and just like standout moments. Like it is this scene because
legendary.
there's nothing else in this movie that's really kind of I'm glomming to
Okay.
other than that. Like there's little bits here and there, but like typically of like John Carpenter, you have movies like The Thing where it's so dense with just like these just fantastic set pieces and interesting characters and just everything kind of like being strung together. Halloween, I'd even say like Assault on Precinct 13, The Fog, like have these things that like the movie just kind of like keeps circling around them, and everything kind of just like connects, and it just like makes the whole experience special in a way. And with this movie it just feels like it's just it happened. And it's kind of I feel like we haven't talked about Prince of Darkness yet, but I feel like a similar thing with that movie too. Like I think that there's
a lot of themes.
a lot of themes
ideas.
and ideas, and just not a lot of like follow through. And just like when things do happen, they're very sudden, and it's just like I needed a little bit more explanation, or at least like a little bit more of a character way into whatever they were trying to tell us.
I'd say Prince of Darkness, I'd argue, is maybe a little less blunt in its symbolism, so I'm more comfortable calling it symbolism, because I feel like that one's much more, at least in my two experiences of screening that film, I remember feeling it was largely kind of maybe more subjective than They Live is. They Live, it like John Carpenter is framing it and showing you what he wants you to see right to the end credits. But there's so much to address.
I think I definitely
of what you just said.
prefer. Well, I was just going to say, I think I definitely prefer Prince of Darkness, just because it is more horror. I think there are like there's imagery, there are things that I remember in that movie that I like. This one has Keith David, like it's.
This one leans into kind of like that muddy area where it's large parts of it feel like an action movie, large parts of it feel like a cult film, and large parts of it have that weird sci-fi, quasi-sci-fi, much more kind of like modern day parable maybe kind of thing, if that's the right term. I forget, fables have animals in the roles of humans. I think parables are about imparting wisdom to people, and I feel like that's what John Carpenter's trying to do, if I'm right. I may not be, but in terms of the fight itself, to get back to that, I just wrote 56 minutes in, here we go. And I actually remembered it a lot longer than it was, so it didn't feel long at all for me. I was like, I thought this was like 10 minutes long or something, which imagine that. But so I sat there and I just had the biggest smile on my face, and I just kind of like went to the place, a similar place I go to when I watch, say, like Mommy Dearest, and Faye Dunaway is just going at, or Joan Crawford is just going at Christina with that wire hanger, and it goes on, as long as it goes on, and I just have this thought, like, that John Waters actually in his commentary for that movie said, if you don't like this scene, you should just never see a movie. And I felt that way when I was watching They Live. I was like, this is like kind of cinema gold, because I do agree with you. I kind of like the fact that it's funny and then it's not, and then it's funny again. But for me, when it's not funny, what I glom onto in those moments isn't kind of like a stagnancy or a static kind of like energy. For me, it's much more about I you know me, I tend to go for like the emotional life, the inner life of the actors and stuff like that. That was the other moment that was redeemable, that redeemed Nada for me, because he so emphatically wants to help this man see the truth that he will engage in fisticuffs for a ridiculous amount of time and endure, you know, like these blows to his head and his body and everything like that, until he can just put the glasses on and hold his head in the direction he wants him to. And I'm like, that's commitment. I can appreciate that.
I definitely, I mean, obviously, like, I appreciate that, everything about that scene, even if I have to get up and do stuff while it's on. But I appreciate it more than, you know, when he's with, what's her name? The Meg Foster character, Holly. Holly Thompson. Yeah. Because he's like put on these glasses and she says to him, well, I mean, I'm kind of like your hostage, like no matter what, like you want me to believe what you see, no matter what happens, I put them on, I'm going to say that I see what you see. And it's just like, bitch, no. Like you, like look, like he can put on the glasses and look at a painting or whatever that she has in her house and just be like, it says obey or whatever. And you just like put on these glasses, tell me what that says. And that's how you know. So, I mean, maybe that was foreshadowing. I mean, I don't think so, but like that she was already full of shit. But it was just, it was just one of those things that frustrated me. Like I felt that there was more that could be done in that scene, because I feel like that scene is another example of this movie taking a step forward and then taking 2 steps backwards. Like we're introduced to this new character, this interesting character, and he gets there and it's just sort of like, it just, the movie's doing stuff like it's taking us farther away from what we need to be doing. And then like it's almost like this movie is a dream in a way that like, and very much like with the fight scene with Roddy and Keith, where it's like, put on these glasses, and it's just like, when you're dreaming, it's just like, I just got to do this one thing. I just got to get to this one place, and it never happens. You're doing this thing forever, and then you wake up right before it happens. You're just like, fuck. And that's what this feels like. It's just like, we're trying to have the thing happen, and then as soon as it does, it's just like, now we're back here. And that was the whole movie. Because by the time we get to the little vigilante rally at the end, and there's all these new characters, and there might have been some from before. I can't remember if like the couple that we see gunned down is the same one that was standing in the room where when he brought the kid in, when he was like, here, go with them. But it's just like all these people are just like talking, and then shit blows up, and then they're like going off on this way, and then there's the hole in the ground, and this
Yes.
I was very confused by this, because they go into the hole, and he's like, where are we? And he's just like, I think we're underneath the city. And then they're taken on this tour by that drifter who I don't even remember. That's the thing. I didn't even remember him from earlier in the movie, but it was like another example of a character. Well, you're more observant than I am, Mr. Virgo.
Well, it's because he was played by George Buck Flower, who's the same actor. I know him from Back to the Future. He played Red in that. He was the homeless guy who basically it's a memorable part just because. Yeah, because at the very end, like after he comes back, for anybody who doesn't know, when Marty comes back to, spoilers for Back to the Future, he comes back into 1985.
In the title.
And it's just like, crazy drunk driver. And then he comes back in part 2 when Marty goes back to the wrong 1985 and bumps into Red, and he's just like, crazy drunk pedestrian.
Okay, well, what I wanted to ask you was like, so they make it seem like they're under the city. But then they're standing on this like deck or whatever, and they're looking out into space. Like there's Earth or some planet. I don't know what it was. So it's just like, okay, so they are in space. But then they go walk down another hall, and then they end up in the building, like in downtown Los Angeles. So I mean that does contribute to this fever dream of just like, where are we? Like, where's everything in relation to everything else? And it just like, that's where the logic stopped making sense to me. And the fact that like we were just with, like we were in this thing where like this assault breaks out with like the police and things are blowing up, and then they get separated from Holly, and then we don't see what happens to her. And then literally like in the next scene, she shows up, she's wearing a completely different outfit. Her hair is different. And they just run up and they're like, Holly, like, come with us. And then that's like, she doesn't even say anything. And that's where we get the scene, that terrible editing of just like, it's like, here we go. Like, she was like, you could see her taking the gun out. And then she didn't even have it pointed at his head when the sound of the gun went off. But anyway, I digress. Because it was just, none of it, like it was so incoherent, and I didn't get what was happening, and I just felt like it was exciting and stuff, and it almost, you know what it reminded me of actually, before I go off on a tangent here, Halloween 3, where he goes back into the factory and he finds Ellie, and she's not speaking, and then she turns out to be the robot, and we haven't talked about that movie yet on the Cherry Picker, but it was just like there's this unanswered question of just like, was she always the robot, or was she replaced during that last bit of the movie, and he never got to see it? Because that's what I was questioning with the character of Holly. Was that her like the entire time? Because it was just so random, just the coincidence of like, he was going to kidnap this one woman, go back to her house, and she just happened to be like working at the headquarters of this fucking place.
Yeah.
You know?
Okay. Is there a question in there?
No, probably, maybe.
Okay, because I had a question for you, kind of along those lines, and on one hand, I'm relieved to hear that we're both kind of like at a loss as to what I could possibly carry in my headcanon the next time I see the movie. But I'm also kind of like sad because I was going to come to you for an answer for this. The whole thing about Holly, I'm unclear as to basically like the whole path that character kind of carves out for herself. Like, she seems to be introduced as a rando, and he goes along with her because he knows that she is not one of them, not one of they live. So he goes off with her, and then once she really finds out that he knows what's going on, she smashes his head. Does she smash something over his head and then he goes out the thing, or does she?
She had a glass, but it looked like she actually, and I liked that moment because it kind of did this like bird's eye shot in her living room, and then I think she had a bottle, but she just sort of like, because he turned his back on her for a second, she smashes it over his head and then full on pushes him out her window, and he falls down this hill rolling down. Because then later she shows up and she's like, I didn't know if I killed you or not, I'm so sorry.
Right.
As she's crying.
Okay, so because I thought he knew because she tried to kill him, that must mean she's on the wrong side of things. So I thought the next time he sees her, when he's in kind of like the underground revolutionary, area where they're all, like making their plans and whatnot before they get invaded again by police, he sees her, and I felt like she walked in her guise as like, I'm a member of the resistance kind of thing, sees her, knows she tried to kill him, and immediately sees through her bullshit. So when he went over to walk to her, I thought, what is he going to say? Like, how is he going to handle this? And honestly, I don't remember what the fuck he said. I just remember they had an exchange that left it all kind of ambiguous. I was like, so wait, so is she really one of them? And it was a mistake that she pushed him out the window? Or, I mean, like at this point, like, does he think she really is a member of this group that is fighting against the oppression, and it was a mistake? She killed him for the wrong reason. Like, they never really have a conversation that mapped out why she was motivated to do what she did when she did, and why he's okay with it. because then he's like trying to save her again or trying to look for her. And I'm like, and even why he's looking for her, like I'm with Frank going, who's Holly? You know, and why are we looking for her?
She's being shot at like everyone else. So it's just like,
right.
But in the scene, like after she throws him out the window, we kind of cut back to her and she's on the phone, and the way it's framed is like she's calling the police. She's like, no, I'm fine.
Right.
But yeah, she just randomly shows up there, and that's the thing. It's just like, oh, this is exciting. This character's back. Because I thought she was interesting at that point, you know, from what we had seen before, and she just shows up, and you're right. There might have been words exchanged, but I think mostly they just kind of stood there and were just like, "It's good to see you." And it's just like, you don't even know each other. I mean, he knows her name. He never said his nada to her.
And what made her so kind of I'm unclear as to like what motivated him to pursue her at all, even from the get-go, aside from her just kind of being there, which I guess would make sense, but nothing that follows backs that up. It's almost like they've got this weird unspoken kinship between the two of them that he can't resist. I don't know.
She's just a very poorly written female character. Is what I kind of get from her. And like the end, like it's just more of like a plot twist with her. She's like, Frank, Holly, are you clear? And she's like, I'm clear. Are you? And it's just, and he just turns around and immediately she's pointed the gun at him. It's just like, oh, this makes all the sense in the world. And like John Carpenter didn't write this script. It's actually adapted from a book or a short story. I forget the name of it. It was like 8 a.m. or something. I don't know. I don't want to look it up. I didn't care enough to. But it's not like John Carpenter can't portray female characters who are real people and fleshed out. Like we have so many of them in like Halloween, as a great example with like all three of like Laurie, Linda, and Annie.
He had a hand from Deborah Hill.
He did have the hand from Deborah Hill for sure. But I mean, like
instrumental in the construction of those characters.
Absolutely, but still, like he's no slouch when it comes to this, and it just seemed like, I don't know, because there's not like a whole lot of information that I could find of just like the behind the scenes. It was more just like the stuff about Roddy Piper and getting him there, that I don't think that he expected this movie to be a success that it was just like, I don't know. I don't want to say that he like phoned anything in ever in his career, because obviously like this is a cult classic. People love it. But there's something about it that just feels like he just yada through some things here, and well, and I think she is definitely one of them.
I'm glad you brought up the point that he didn't construct the screen, or he didn't write the screenplay, because I do have to say, like, the strongest things for me about this movie are all tied into the language of filmmaking, which is show me, don't tell me.
Yeah.
There are a lot of great exchanges that said, there's a lot of great exchanges in the script, but Zach, there were so many scenes where they were talking and I was fascinated by what they were saying, but it was so fast. They were like kind of like just spouting off these really simply put but really profound statements about it could have just been a character's perspective of what's going on or what the world is, by and large, their view and everything. And it could be about us as a society. We live in a society, we're a community, like, and this and that, or we're not, and we're turned against each other, and blah 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 blah. It was always a bit much to absorb in one sitting. So many scenes I had to rewind and listen again, and then rewind again and watch it with the subtitles so I could read it, because it felt like the dialogue was maybe a little, I hesitate to say literary, but it just maybe graphic novel-esque, shall we say. I feel like this would make an incredible comic book. You know what I mean?
No, absolutely, and I think that there is something very iconic about the look of the aliens, which I do want to get to in a second, but I do want to amend something. Because Okay, first of all, the short story that this is based on is called 8 o'clock in the Morning by Ray Nelson. The screenplay is written by Frank Armitage, and I air quote that because it's John Carpenter is using a pseudonym, which
Oh,
I
well
mean,
then, okay.
sneaky little John Carpenter. He always fucking doing that, and like, cause he. I know.
Carpenter. All right, well then I rescind everything I just said.
Yeah.
Okay, so he wrote it and it was clunky. Maybe he needed to revise it and didn't have time. I don't know.
But before we found that out,
Yes.
it's interesting. I wonder why he did that. Probably because he knew that the script sucked. It's not his best work.
He knew that visually, like, the director's going to be credited with the way the film is presented and framed, and that the screenwriter is going to get blamed for the dialogue and the flow, the general flow of it. I guess
I guess
and the
so.
editor. I guess. But
I mean,
okay,
accountability, John. Come on. But I mean, like, as a director, though, like, because the movie looks great. Like, it has his signature style about it, and that's, you know, when you have a director that you glom onto, like the way that I do with John Carpenter, you're absolutely right. Like, this movie is a visual trip, and that's what we're getting out of it. It doesn't really matter what people are saying. It's word salad. But in terms of the aliens, because there was something interesting on the trivia here for IMDb. The aliens superficially resemble walking, rotting corpses. Like, that's the way they're described here. So John Carpenter didn't want the aliens to look like the high-tech creatures of other science fiction films. So he decided that since these beings were corrupting humanity, that they themselves should resemble corruptions of human beings. And that's why they kind of have that, as what they call them, like the formaldehyde face look. And we really get, like, because they're all shown in black and white throughout the film, but then we finally do get them in color in that little segment at the end where we actually there is a little bit more meta-ness to it, because we have Siskel and Ebert, who are both revealed to be aliens, and they're talking shit about George Romero and John Carpenter.
Yes.
So it's like, if we thought that the Wes Craven, like in Scream, or like I said, a Kevin Williamson quote, but when he's just like, Sydney, you're starting to sound like some Wes Carpenter flick. Like, we have John Carpenter like fully referencing himself in this movie, which, I mean, good for him.
Basically saying Siskel and Ebert don't get it. Yeah. That's what he's saying.
And then they didn't. They shit on horror movies so bad. I'm curious now what they said about this.
Well, while you're looking that up, like, okay, number one, I'm delighted that he used his Frank Armitage as his pseudonym, because that's also, when I was looking at, it's not listed on IMDb, but when I was looking at wiki quotes to like even reread even more of the dialogue after I finished the movie, I saw that Frank's character, played by Keith David, his last name, at least as it's printed on WikiQuote, is Frank Armitage. So that's interesting that that character is also the screenwriter.
Keith David's character wrote the movie. Yeah. Which is all the more reason that he should have been possibly the main character here.
Oh, absolutely. That would have been hilarious. But also, in terms of, I was really, really happy at the end of the movie to see that diss shared by John Carpenter and George Romero by, you know, their Siskel and Ebert, because at some point, I can't remember exactly when. I think it was probably somewhere in the bridge between the first and second act. I really, because, you know, the symbolism was so abrupt and so in my face, I was like, I don't think I've had symbolism that's this, shall we say, saturated.
Yeah.
Since the screening that I did of Dawn of the Dead for that pod that we recorded, however many months ago that was, and because that's probably why I felt like the first act was stronger, because I found a lot of things kind of being introduced, and a lot of ideas just kind of like here's this, here's that, you know, whatever you want to kind of like take inspiration from as an audience member. Like, here you go. And it fed me. It carried me through, particularly the exposition of that first act. So George Romero was already on my mind in terms of just like the aforementioned social commentary that this film was trying to impart, and I think successfully imparting. Like, I mean, the answer did come for me as I was making my way through the film, particularly through the second act, as things were getting harrowing and more and more so. I realized, oh, I know why I don't return to this. It makes me too sad, and it's not even like it's not an emotionally cathartic kind of sadness. It's just a kind of like, God, the world is still like this and it sucks. And I can't achieve any kind of like gratifying emotional release for that. It's just kind of like that's why this film, it's the stuff of ideas, of concepts, and of action. And those are three things. I mean, after our discussion of, we already covered. Wait, I always forget. Did we cover Cabin in the Woods on this pod, or is that just?
We did cover Cabin in the Woods. That was like episode, I want to say 11. Okay. Yeah.
And I was kind of like thumbs down about my experience, even though I, loved those concepts, those themes. Like the gas ran out for me emotionally after a while, because I was like, this is really clever, and I'm not connected to it. And They Live, I think, less so. I'm too connected to it. Like, from a sociological standpoint, it's about the world I live in. It's making a commentary, that I am living through every day, and it's too sad.
Yeah, it's very holding up a mirror to the world and oneself, and it's not something that is always pleasant to watch. And I also feel that the ending is not neat or tidy, but it's a little too fast for me. Like, it's very rushed, and we could have definitely had more, because I did love the design of the aliens. Like, we could have had more. I felt like it almost like ended a little too abruptly. There should have been more scenes. Yeah, I was expecting a little bit more than just the bits that we got, and I was confused for a second, because I thought like, oh wait, did Nada die? Because he kind of got like blown back, but then he's laying there and he's like giving the middle finger, and he's like giving like the wimpiest middle finger. He's like curling it, and that Roddy Piper actually said, he's like, oh, I wish I could have gone back and like, done a proper like middle finger. Right. But yeah, it didn't feel rewarding, because it did seem very rushed to me. And that's maybe another parallel that this has to Halloween 3, because it does that ending of just like shut it off, or whatever he's saying. I mean, I love that movie so much more than this. But I don't know how much more I have to say. I did find an interesting thing here too, and I always love reading through these. I don't know how accurate they are, but other actors who were considered to play Nada. Do you want to hear?
Oh my God.
Everyone wants to hear. It doesn't matter if you don't want to hear, but okay.
No, go.
So we've got Alec Baldwin, Michael Bain, Brian Bosworth, Jeff Bridges, Bruce Campbell, Tom Cruise, Harrison Ford, Mel Gibson, Tommy Lee Jones, Michael Keaton, Christopher Lambert, Stephen Lang, Dolph Lundgren, Michael Madsen, Bill Paxton, Ron Perlman, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Sylvester Stallone, Patrick Swayze, Jean-Claude Van Damme, and Bruce Willis.
So why didn't? Okay, there's too many names, but like,
that's why I always
Campbell's
question.
Jumping out at me. I'm also thinking Ron Perlman, or who was another one that you mentioned that I was like, ooh, would have loved to have seen him.
I think it just
Michael
came
Madsen.
Down to,
oh my God, those guys would have been amazing.
I mean, even if this is true, because
even if it's true,
we were looking at one. We haven't talked about Hannibal on the Cherry Picker yet. We will. So we still have to get through Silence of the Lambs at some point, but it was when it came down to who was going to replace Jodie Foster. as Clarice Starling, and there's like this like a similar thing on like the IMDb trivia of just all these names, and I think like Denise Richards was one of them, and I'd be like, love Denise Richards, but there's no way.
Yes.
There's like
No way.
like it was there was like 50 names or so, and it's just like probably maybe like 2 or 3 of these were actually in serious consideration, but all of them. So that's why I take this with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
But yeah, what I get from it is that, I mean, if John Carpenter loves wrestling, and he already wrote like the one rule for Keith David, he probably wrote Nada specifically for Roddy Piper as well. So it's just, you know, it was just sort of a thing. And now knowing now that it's funny because we were even talking earlier about how the character was written for Keith David, so why didn't put that together? That's the power of John Carpenter. He's just so charming and so good at bullshitting us that, you know, we fall for it. He's gonna make us a star, you know.
That's right. Yeah. No, I mean, this is the thing about, because I don't want to make it sound like I'm completely dissing like Roddy Piper. In fact, like there were some things that I really appreciated that he did, but the thing was, I think it was the character is so incongruous. Like I actually felt every step of the way that I was watching Frank, played by Keith David, I was seeing the same character, whereas I don't think Nada was really carefully handled on the page. Because he's all over the place. We already kind of established it. We touched on it. But I mean, the fact that like he goes from being this kind of like benevolent force and this guy who just wants to do right by things, but then who's so stupid that he can like look the oppressor in the face and just mouth off at them and expect no retaliation. I mean, what did you think was going to happen? And then then there's the humor. I love once he finally gets Frank to put the glasses on, the way they both walk down the street with the glasses and walk into that hotel and check in and everything like that. Like that's comedic. Like even just their posture and the way they're kind of in lockstep together. Everything about it's just like, just play it cool.
He also has like the most like that iconic line that, like, you know, everyone has heard this line, regardless if they know what movie it's from. But like, I'm here to kick ass and chew bubblegum, and I'm all out of bubblegum. Maybe I'm paraphrasing it, but
that's why I didn't want to read it for my opening quote, because everybody knows that line.
Everyone knows that line, and I mean, I'm not totally not dissing him. Like, if anything, this comes down to the writing. So I mean, I guess that's a diss against John Carpenter. But again, it's like, I don't think that this is a movie that needed to. I mean, it should have been written, but I don't think that for whatever John Carpenter was giving us, he needed to. And with the understanding of what John Carpenter had gone through over like the last 7 years or whatever, it's just like, I don't blame him. Like, he put his heart and soul into these movies, like The Thing, and like for critics to shit on it and audiences to just not see it, like, because The Thing didn't become like a cult hit until like probably like 20 years later, almost until the late 90s. So it's like, I could understand why John Carpenter would just kind of be cynical and just be like, you know what, I'm not gonna do the full job, you know, like I'll do what I have to. Like, he did a good job directing it, but like in terms of the story, he's probably just like, if I'm expected to adapt this screenplay.
Well, because also, like I said, with the screenplay, I feel like the flaw I find with it, the fatal flaw, it's not fatal, but the flaw that I continually find with it is just that it's uneven. Because I think there is profundity. I even I copied down this exchange that I really, really loved, just establishing like Frank and Nada may as well have just said like, oh my goodness, we're characters with contrasting opinions and perspectives on the world. But the way it's introduced is a little more subtle than that. Frank says, I have a job now, and I plan on keeping it. I'm walking a white line all the time. I don't bother nobody. Nobody bothers me. You better start doing the same. Now we know exactly who he is. Then Nada says, white lines in the middle of the road. That's the worst place to drive. Now I know at least a pocket of like exactly who that character, where he's going to be coming from for, you know, like a lot of his decisions. The problem is a lot of the choices the character makes after that is not that man. And then sometimes it is. So uneven, like I said.
Yeah.
But
I don't even remember hearing that. That just sounds like some deep
really?
shit that was just, it's just talking, you know?
I liked it. I thought it was
Yeah.
pretty efficient because those were some of the more wordy lines that didn't go over my head that I rewound just because I was like, ooh, nice. You know, like this is like prime action movie character establishment.
Yeah.
So I appreciated that.
So
Also, yeah.
well, I was gonna say at the beginning of the episode, you kind of mentioned your top John Carpenter movies. So I wanted to circle back to that because I'm curious to know. Because I think I know mine, possibly, but yeah, you go first.
Well, the top three that come to mind, like I said, like if you were to say top three John Carpenter, answer now without, you know, any kind of like sifting through and going to IMDb to go, wait, did I leave anything out? Immediately, I think, and not in any particular order, but I think the first ones that come to mind: Halloween, The Fog, and The Thing. You know?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I definitely like Halloween and The Thing, for sure.
Right.
For a third one, that's a little trickier.
Yeah, I know. Well, that's the thing. You can't think about it too much.
Yeah, no, I mean, I like The Fog. Like that's the thing, because The Fog is another movie that suffers from. And we haven't covered this one yet, but you know, like a very plot heavy script. Like there's just like a lot of exposition in there, and a lot of it doesn't really make a lot of sense. But I mean, the movie itself is just beautiful. Like it's so atmospheric. That yeah. I mean, I might say that for now. I mean, even like there are parts of Prince of Darkness that just talking about it now that like really reach out and grab at me. And then there's other like schlocky things like vampires. I don't think that would ever be in my like top three John Carpenter's, but I just like things about that I remember. Because I think he's directed, I want to say 18 movies. Escape from New York, maybe Escape from New York. But you know that one has issues too. Like I think like the thing is like Halloween and The Thing are so flawless. Like in my mind, those are perfect movies, and his most perfect movies. So like anything below that is just it doesn't quite reach the standard. But
I mean,
this,
yeah.
No, go ahead.
No, just the thing that the thing that stands out to me the most when I think about this film in particular, because I hope people who are fans that are listening don't just feel like I'm nitpicking or anything like that. It's just, you know, it's just stuff that jumps out at me, that occurs to me, and questions I have. But there's also just like the resonance that I appreciate, I guess. Like I don't appreciate it as I'm watching the movie because, like I said, it hurts. But I'm gonna carry that one billboard with me that just read, work 8 hours, sleep 8 hours, play 8 hours. That was so depressing to me because it made me think like, do I even play for 8 hours? Like, I think work sometimes tips the scale a little bit more, and it's like work 10 hours, play, you know, play maybe 4, maybe 2.
The lines are very blurred, like especially like from profession to profession.
And as I get older, there's a harsher divide between sleep and rest. Like I need time to sleep, but I also need time to be awake and do nothing to like, you know, recharge the battery.
I mean, when I wake up in the morning, I have to just lay there for a bit. I mean, I haven't really gotten the chance to do it lately because I've just like my schedule is like go. But you know, back in the day, like, you know, when I did have a job that, you know, I would go to that when I was a server, I would know when my shift started, and if it was, you know, I had to be up at a certain time, I would set my alarm for a certain time, and then usually it would, even after it went off, I would just lay there and go back to sleep. And then when I finally did wake up, I'd probably spend another hour just laying there because it's just like, or like looking on like the internet or whatever, just because you need that time. Like that's recharging your batteries. I mean, not everyone's like that. Some people can like get up and go, and I mean, I'm envious of that, but yeah,
Yeah. Well, I mean,
I need to lay. I need to just like lounge.
Yeah. Also, I mean, I think you and I are relative introverts, and that means exchanges with other people costs us energy. Extroverts tend to get charged by other people's energy, and I don't really. The only time I've ever experienced anything like that is maybe on stage, like in real time, an audience, you can feed off of that energy. But after it's over, I still need to drop and just do nothing.
Yeah.
So I guess
extroverts are so funny to me. Like I love them so much. Like I was at the gym today, and it's always funny to just like I don't really pay attention to like other people there, but like whenever there's an extrovert in the room, like you just know because they want you to pay attention to them. And there's this guy there today, and he just started like dancing and singing like around other people, and it's just like I would never like be friends with this person in real life, and not because I don't like them, but just because like we have nothing in common. But it was just so sweet and endearing that he was just like there and just like dancing in the mirror. Like what the fuck. But anyway, They Live is not for all the shit talk, which I don't think has like been shit talk. But for the criticisms that we've had, this is nowhere near John Carpenter's worst movie.
No.
This is probably like closer to the top maybe. I'd have to watch all of them and just like, come up with a definitive ranking, but the word we might have mentioned the worst one on here because everyone knows what it is. It's Memoirs of an Invisible Man.
We tried so hard to do that reaction, and we did, and then you just couldn't edit it because it was too painful, right?
It was because way back when we were doing like things for Patreon, just in terms of reactions, and I mean I don't react to things like look at me, like I mean I'll have a reaction, but like could you imagine if I had a YouTube channel and just like would like first time watching, because I've seen everything. I mean like I don't get it exactly, but it would just be deadpan. Like it would be boring for people to watch me watch something, because as I watch something, especially if it's the first time, I don't want to be like yammering on. I want to be able to hear the movie, and I can't hear the movie over the sound of my own voice. And we did that. We tried to do it for The Invisible Man, and I think we were just so downtrodden by how bad it was. Like it's just such a bad movie. And Carpenter knew it was. Like he just did not give a fuck. Like he just doesn't ever talk about that movie. But there was
have fun with it. At a certain point, we were just
not even like the bad kind of fun that you can like laugh at or make fun of. Like it was just I just felt sorry for everyone involved with it, which was depressing because I think that
there was not that.
Yeah, there was some semblance of a budget that went into that, if I recall.
Yes.
But regardless of that, you mentioned earlier the Cabin in the Woods episode, which I think I said was 11, and it just reminded me we are at 90 episodes. This is our 90th episode.
Oh my god!
Yeah, isn't that fun? We're 10 away from I mean, not counting the After Darks, but sure. I mean, I at this point we've probably hit 100, but 100 proper, that's still some ways away.
Fun.
But yeah, any final words on They Live before we get to the usual?
Just basically like at its strongest, I can appreciate what I can appreciate about the screenplay is its deceptive simplicity. I like that there are aspects addressed within this movie about artificially induced state of consciousness that resembles sleep. The epidemic of violence. I love looking down at dollar bills that when you have the glasses on it reads "This is your God." I mean, That
It makes me think of
for
Freddy
me-
Krueger. Like, this
This
is your
is your
god.
god, and then money, ka-ching. But but I mean, that's where if there is a heart to this piece, ironically enough, I feel like it's maybe some people could see that as cynicism. I feel like it's John Carpenter kind of like bearing himself with maybe his purest worldview. In terms of like, I guess, corporate America. And maybe it needn't just be confined to the United States of America. It could be, worldwide. Like, I mean, it's even in the screenplay. And now that we know that he wrote the screenplay, there are no countries anymore. There are no barriers. It's all just one thing. So I feel like that kind of globalist perspective coupled with like this inevitable deception that's going on, of the masses. It's not hopeless. I mean, it's hard to sit through, but I appreciate the fact that it all kind of like there's that wonderful mask off moment. I thought it ended with a comedic beat, so time wise, that ending did work for me. Only other thing I can say is I love seeing Meg Foster in something else, because I think the only other thing I think I've seen her in is Masters of the Universe when I was a boy as Evelyn in that. And I love her. But also I was getting I was wondering if you got this at all. I was getting such Julia energy from Hellraiser from her in this movie.
Ooh, yeah, very much.
Just very severe, beautiful face.
Claire Higgins, Julia Cotton from Hellraiser and Hellbound. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I like her, like the actress. Like like she does have a very distinct, striking look about her. But yeah, character. Meh. And I was just gonna say, like, I think that the iconography of like just the billboards, the look of the aliens, like that is all like that's probably the most successful part of the movie for me. Even like the conceit of like the glasses, which is never really I don't even think that they really mention like how these work or how they're you're able to see through them, but just it's the key art for this movie is magnificent. Like this might be one of the best key art designs of any movie. Like it's certainly like in a top 50. I don't know, just throwing in a random number there. There's a lot of great key art there, but this one is very iconic.
There's also a curious irony to the fact that like some of the best merchandise that has ever been made for movies is made for this movie.
Yeah.
And here, this movie that is about kind of like overcoming superficiality and capitalism, and its merch is killer. Like I want a They Live shirt. I would wear it unironically, but there would be
the
irony
whole
to it.
the Obey slogan, like that was like a clothing line as well. So it was just, and it was like the same font and everything. So it's definitely its legacy has lived on. So this movie did lots of things right, and a lot of people really love it. I gave it a 3.5 out of 5 on Letterboxd.
Oh, okay.
What do you think?
I can't do that. I have some people like
You're
to do
letting
that
everyone down.
No, because well, nothing new there. Yeah. But no, some people, I've heard people like in their rankings, they love to do it pure. Keep it pure by just kind of like not looking at their other rankings. The only way I can rank things is look at other things and go, what did I give this movie? Well, it's definitely better than that, so I have to give it more than 3 stars or whatever, like that. Even if I'm thinking, maybe 3 stars, and I'd look at other things I gave 3 stars. I'm like, no, it's better than this. Or
I'm very
not as good as that.
Analytical with like the rating system of Letterboxd. It's like there's very few that are going to be like a half a star, but there's also very few that are going to be 5 stars. And like I was looking because it shows you what your like averages are, and most of mine are 3, so it kind of like has this like pyramid shape. Which I mean that makes sense. Like I think that most movies are in that like 3 to 3.5 like average zone there, and there's very few that do kind of like earn in my mind that 5-star rating. But also it takes a really bad movie to get a half star. But 3.5, that's good. That's 7 out of 10.
Yeah.
Recommend. Yeah.
I'd like to, yeah, definitely would recommend, and I'm actually looking forward to, as we kind of like scale the mountain range of John Carpenter filmography hills.
The Rushmore of John Carpenter.
The Rushmore of John Carpenter movies.
So I guess that would be the top four. So we'd have the Halloween and The Thing and The Fog and something else.
Maybe. That's the thing I'm looking forward to, is like actually like kind of like consuming as many as possible, discussing them here, and then ranking them. And seeing exactly where it would fall. And like, okay, it's not the top 3, but where is it?
Well,
is that still going to be true?
We will get to some more John Carpenter movies here soon. But yeah, having said that, let's mosey on over to the cherry picker.
It's not like we killed people. On purpose.
So Edward, cherry on top for They Live. I mean, it's slim pickings, but I mean, I'm gonna go with Frank Armitage. Armitage.
I say Armitage, but I never hear anybody say it. So
he's just Frank in the movie, but yeah,
he's just Frank. So Frank.
And Keith David Childs was our cherry on top for The Thing as well. And and that's like in competition with Kurt Russell, who's just like, that's Kurt Russell. Actually, funny thing, Kurt Russell, I guess maybe at one point, and it's funny that his name wasn't listed among that list of all those names.
Yeah.
Because I think that he was possibly at some point considered, or like people thought that he would be, and John Carpenter is like, well, no, like I've used him in like my last 4 movies, so let's distance ourselves a little bit there. So
sure. And he was making other movies at the time too. Kurt Russell was, so
I would be curious what this movie would have been if it was Kurt Russell and having that team up again of Childs and McCready.
I thought about Kurt Russell while I was watching the movie, thinking, I think it would have notched up. I mean, I like I said, I love what Roddy does with what he has like on screen, and he definitely makes an impression. It makes it more culty, I think, having Roddy play Nada than Kurt Russell.
Roddy,
but that was his wrestling name. But it would have been a different movie. I feel like there were things that Kurt might have like challenged John Carpenter on and been like, can we not have me do this? You know, it's maybe. I don't think Kurt Russell would have played it the same.
Yeah.
It would have been very different.
But I mean, it would have been a very different movie. But I mean, in that respect, Frank is definitely like, he's my favorite part of the movie. He's my favorite scene, the scene. So I'm glad that we're in agreement.
Yeah.
So
David's so great.
He's so great. He is. Last week on the Cherry Picker, we asked you who deserves to die the most in House of Wax 2005. We had a special guest on with us, Eric Champney. So we had 3 options this time. So it was between Bo Sinclair, the sheriff, and Wade Felton. I don't know. The name was on Google. Jared Padalecki's character. And across Patreon, Instagram, and YouTube, the vote came down to 672 for Bo, 148 for Sheriff, and 107 for Wade. Wow. So sorry about that, Eric. We haven't had a guest. I mean, we've only had very few and far between we've had guests on, but guest nominations have never won. And I actually would have nominated Wade myself because I cannot stand that character, but Eric swooped in and took it from me. So I don't know if I would have lost or won, because what if it did come down to, would you have always picked the sheriff if I didn't pick Bo?
No, I probably would have picked Bo. If I got first choice, I might have gone with Bo because I can't stand his presence on screen.
And I definitely would have picked Wade just for being an idiot.
Okay.
But let's see what people are saying. Amethyst Frost. My head says Bo, but my heart says cause mischief and vote for Eric's choice because I want to see what happens when a guest host wins the Cherry Picker.
Don't we all?
If that ever was the case, it would just be whoever would get the first dibs the next week would be whoever came in second, I guess. So.
I guess,
There's always a method, yeah. But the guest host always gets the first pick. Matthias Eggerman. The film effects are still really good. Great effects on the melting museum and deaths. Some of the death scenes still haunt me after I seen the movie. I say Dalton. I can't unsee him as Bobby from Scary Movie.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I can accept him. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not sitting there going like, you're just Bobby. But I can't unsee everything that Bobby does. He was really good as Bobby. So
Yeah, I like Dalton much more than Wade.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I like Dalton. I liked his
He makes
little
me
like
laugh a lot in
I
Scary
liked his
Movie.
little like hold on, like he's just being chased by the killer. Like time out, give me a second to just catch my breath, collect myself. Like
Okay.
just hold on, like play fair. No, that's not how this
Now I'm
works.
just thinking about him in Scary Movie going, ketchup, just like my mom puts on her spaghetti, baby. Oh, God.
Right. Grant Dempsey. I was torn between Wade and the sheriff, but I decided to go with the sheriff because in that picture, he's got a discount Robert Forster look, and damn it, I want the real thing. Robert Forster coming in for like a 2-second cameo in the House of Wax remake. Thomas Baker, I choose the sheriff, and also I love that Damon Harriman, who played Charles Manson in Mindhunter and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, is in this movie. Yeah, we mentioned that he played Charlie Manson in both of those, and he played the roadkill guy here.
Right.
Mendejo says, Bo, I always felt bad for Wade, but maybe it's because he's so pretty. Blue Box 87, Wade, because he took the window seat and then he wandered around a stranger's house and played with a cow fetus or whatever that was. The real choice here is the twins, Nick and Carly, both extremely unlikable. They would have made for pretty wax figures too. Bo and Vincent deserve to live because out of all the movies out there, they decided to stick with whatever happened with Baby Jane, and that deserves respect. to play in the movie house. Yeah.
Right.
Jess with Spone. I hope. My apologies. I've watched House of Wax more this year than I have since it came out, and I realized what a butt munch Wade is. I love Jared Padalecki, but Wade's death is so satisfying.
Wow.
RSDM, I gotta go with the sheriff. He just simply rubbed me the wrong way. I don't even remember the sheriff. It's so interesting because sometimes you or I will pick like whoever like the law enforcement person is in any of these movies, and the results are always varying. You never know, who people are going to go after.
Yeah. Who's going to resonate with the crowds? It's always a gamble.
Yeah. As told by whomever says, ooh, I'm excited for this one. Well, we're excited for you to be excited for this one.
Yes.
Silent Saturn, all of them, the entire movie. It's nasty. Oh, well, gonna go with Eric's pick as it's the hospitable thing to do. And also because Jared Padalecki does most of his acting through the nose, expressing emotions by the varying degrees he inflates his nostrils. It always irritated me when watching Supernatural.
I never thought about that, but I totally see it when you read it. Oh my God.
Yeah. That's so spicy. I love it. Sean
Like, I
Prince.
never thought of Richard Gere as a blinker, and then somebody pointed out that he blinks a lot when he acts, and I'm like, oh my God, he does.
You can only
When
hear
it
that
gets emotional, it's
Richard Gere gerbil story so many times before it starts to become true. Sean Prinsick, it's hard to care about any of the people in this movie outside of Paris Hilton, who is surprisingly good in the film. Ultimately, I'll go with Bo because he is one of the killers. Wade for sure had one of the more confusing deaths. Last time we see him alive, he's fine, minus the side of his mouth and covered in wax. Then the next time we see him, he's apparently dead. What happened in between? Yeah. Also, talk about diminishing returns with each House of Wax movie. The 50s one is only worth it for Vincent Price, and this 2005 remake is more of a Rob Zombie Halloween Texas Chainsaw hybrid than House of Wax.
Oh.
Mystery of the Wax Museum 1933 will always be the superior film because Glenda Farrell is an absolute treasure. And that's why she ended up being the inspiration for Lois Lane.
Very nice.
Yeah. Well, I mean, have you seen the Mystery at the Wax Museum, Edward?
No, I have not. I've got it on my list. I need to.
I actually have, because I own the 1953 House of Wax DVD, and it might be like a double-sided disc, and the 1933 Mystery of the Wax Museum one is on there. But I don't remember. I like watched it once.
Okay.
Sean will be so disappointed to know that the 2005 remake is probably my preferred version of the. It's not a House of Wax movie. It just simply isn't. It's its own thing. It's like a Texas Chainsaw Tourist Trap remake, but
Right.
yeah. Winter Wonder, voting Bo. He was a sadistic bastard, and I agree with Zach. Watching Carly finally do something productive and take his asset with a bat was a great feeling. The sheriff also sucks for being such a dumbass, but he is pretty forgettable in the grand scheme of things. Daddy Wade already suffered enough. He should just de-wax himself and hit me up. And he can do some nostril breathing on you. He could whisper sweet nothings to you with his nostrils.
Ugh. Jeez, what? What?
What?
I'm like, yeah, what does that even mean?
I don't know. I was just going by the nostril, the acting. Yeah.
Just exhale on you. I'll have to blow my nose now.
Alikokar, I can't believe you put Jared Padalecki as an option. Him and Jensen Ackles can do no wrong. LOL. The clear answer is Bo. Not only is he a vindictive and manipulative murderer, but he uses the vulnerability and mental instability of his twin brother to carry out his devious actions. In a way, I have a reserved sympathy for Vincent. Though I condemn his actions, one must recognize that he was a product of inadequate environmental factors and perhaps was not exposed to societal, internal, intellectual cohesion. I would categorize Bo as someone who was predestined to be a deplorable and malicious individual, while Vincent could have had a adequate and standard existence if he was brought up in a completely different geographic location. I watched this movie several times growing up in the late 2000s, so I have a peculiar affinity for it. I can tell.
Right?
Yeah.
Nice, very detailed.
Very
it just
nice.
occurred to me, didn't I have picked before you last week? So I guess I wouldn't have picked Bo, because otherwise I would have picked
That's
him.
true.
Right?
You did, because you won the Dream Warriors episode. So
Right.
yeah, you always had picked.
I guess
Yeah.
now I time has shown that
This
I
is
do
why.
favor Bo
Yeah,
less.
this is why Amethyst Frost has the all the spreadsheets of all the past cherry picker votes. We've mentioned it before. Thank you, Amethyst. If you go onto the YouTube community, just go to our YouTube channel there. But in the about, there's a link to it, and all of the information is updated. So thank you so much, Amethyst, for
Thank you.
for getting on top of that and adding a lot of trivia too. There's
Tidbits,
apparently now like zodiac sign
Oh my
added.
god.
Yeah.
That
Right?
you've assigned to the various
That has been
cast,
assigned.
well, not
yes.
cast members, but to various characters that we've covered.
Characters.
Yeah.
I would love
Yeah.
if there was a coffee table book of just like movies, specifically horror movies that someone would make and just be like, this is what this person's zodiac sign would be.
We've covered. This isn't the first time we've covered that on this
Yeah.
pod either. You've posited this before. You should write this book.
I should get on that, except now I've
Yeah.
spoken it out loud and other people are like, I'm going to
You were
do it
worried about
first.
that last time, and it still hasn't happened.
It
so
hasn't happened yet, yeah.
Go for it. Just beat
We'll
him
see.
to the punch.
We'll see. Okay, what's that? Elliot from Orlando. Sheriff, shit rolls downhill.
I like it.
I Am Solomon, the movie I turned off at the Achilles tendon being cut. Nope. I'll enjoy listening to the episode though, but I know nothing of this movie. It's so funny what people find disturbing, because for me it's needles. Like Halloween 2. Halloween 2 when Laurie is like brought into the hospital and then we see that shit, like that's like, oh, come on, Rick Rosenthal.
See, needle in the arm, like I understand it. Like I don't judge anyone for it. I don't really have that. The thing that I get is like needle when you hear about like people playing junkies like in movies and like they're alluding to the way they hid, they didn't have track marks on their arms, was they shot between their toes. I always clench my feet, like my toes together. I'm just like, oh, I can't imagine. I could never. No. And it's not a judgment. It's just an aversion. Go on.
Fair. And then lastly, Jason Pendergast. No Paris Hilton options? No. I don't think she deserved it in this. Which is ironic because like that was like the marketing campaign for the movie.
But that was about Paris, not about what was her character's name again?
Paige.
Yeah. Okay.
Paige Edwards, I believe.
I mean, she was kind of a shitty friend, but she also had a lot to think about.
She was going through a lot. She had a boyfriend who was more concerned about the music not playing. All right.
Yeah.
So, fuck. There are characters in They Live. We have to now nominate. I don't know. Do they have names? They're there. I'm sorry to be basic, but I'm gonna go with Holly Thompson for all the reasons that we said before. This is a non-character who, what is her trajectory? What is the logic there? And I mean, she killed our darling. She shot poor Keith David, Frank Armitage. So she can go.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I thought about possibly choosing the Drifter just because that's another thing that I love about Frank and Nada is the disappointed expression on their faces they share when they see that he's turned, that he's like flipped and become like, one of them.
And I'm just like, who's that?
But it really like, struck a chord with me. But the thing is, I can't blame him because even though he's part of the problem, he's not like I wish we kind of got like somebody in charge somewhere who like was a character established. So the only thing I can,
the big bad,
but so I also like that the big bad is like so beyond us, and who knows how long it's been in effect. So so I mean I get all that, but so in terms of like somebody deserving to die, the only person I can think of that I can confidently with my conscience and my heart vote on, and maybe this is a mistake after last week, but I'm gonna go with, I don't even know which one this is, but the man credited as blonde-haired cop, just because obviously both of them made an impression on me. It doesn't really matter who. In fact, the fact that they're as interchangeable as they are should be a count against them. And because they're I'd argue they're more instrumental in the destruction of all that is good and that should be cultivated in our society than poor Drifter, nameless Drifter. So let's go with that guy, that blonde-haired cop.
Awesome. Well, there you go. You can vote your heart, vote your conscience. The poll is available on Patreon for anyone who does want to support. You get an extra vote over there as well with your membership. You can also vote on Instagram. Go follow us at the Cherry Picker Pod. And then, of course, on YouTube in the community section. So that poll shows up every week. Subscribe to us there if you are new to the Cherry Picker and you are watching us. You can listen to us as well. The RSS feed link is in the descriptions down below. And if you are listening to us, you can also watch us. Just go to the YouTube. Edward, where can they find you on social media?
and Instagram and Letterboxd, and I mean, you won't really find me there, but I'm on TikTok, I guess. I have an account.
Okay, you
And,
need to
what's the other
stop
thing?
saying that. It's just dead air. You've been saying it for like the last
But I
5
might
months.
be on it at some point, and I have to answer in kind. But because I do
You're
have an account.
lying to people.
Until I sever the account, like Twitter, I did that. I destroyed my account. Until it's no longer activated, then I have to keep touting it because there might be something someday. Who knows? And what was the other thing? Did I say YouTube?
No.
Probably
You did
YouTube.
now. Yeah.
All that stuff. Edward is Truth. Traditional spelling, one word. Anything from you, Zach Cherry?
You can find my main YouTube channel, Zach Cherry, ZACKCHERRY. Twitter, ZachCherry8. Instagram, Retro Bitch Face, all one word. Very proud of that one. It's been around for a while. I'm also on Letterboxd, Zach Cherry, same as before. What's going on next week? Not next week, because next week is Buffy. What's going on the week after that? When our regular programming continues.
That one, I wrote it down. I don't remember.
It is.
Oh, I remember Deep Red.
Deep Red. Dario Argento's Deep Red. We are coming into December, so Christmas time, and that's kind of Christmassy, and it's kind of really good. So look out for that. But next week will be the Buffy season 7. If you're not a Patreon supporter, the preview will still be available. But other than that, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening, and we will be right